Always great catching up with my next guest, Austin Hubbard, who's coming off a nice win on The Ultimate Fighter, season 31, getting it done over Aaron McKenzie. Austin, how's it going, man?
It's going good. How are you?
Doing awesome. I was really cool to see you on this season of The Ultimate Fighter. Of course, you and I have been doing interviews way back to when you fought in LFA. I actually wanted to know, like, how did this come together with you getting on the show?
Yeah, so it was kind of out of left field, really. I had no idea they were even putting together another Ultimate Fighter season. I had no idea one was coming up. One of the producers actually called one of my coaches. They were, friends. They've known each other, and he said, "Hey, we want Austin on the show. Tell him to apply and start the process." And my coach called me and was like, "Hey, they want you on the show. Fill out the application, get a hold of them, this and that." And at the time, to be honest, I wasn't in a very good spot mentally, and I didn't even know if I like really wanted to do it at first. Ultimate Fighter is such a different route back to the UFC than a last minute fight. But obviously I ended up taking the opportunity. I knew at the end of the day that I would definitely regret it if I didn't do it. So obviously I did end up going through with it and doing it. And it ended up being a cool experience.
Were you a fan of the show before getting on? Like, I'm assuming you watched it because Zach, your teammate, Pagua, had been on the show.
Yeah, I've watched Ultimate Fighter for a long time, actually. Way back to when, Rashad Evans Rampage and Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner, like way back. I watched all those. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. I never thought I'd be on the show. It was, I don't know, it was pretty cool. Like I said, I never thought I was gonna have that opportunity and do that, and I then got it out of nowhere, and it ended up being a great thing, I think.
I know you can't say too much, obviously, because the show's still going on, but how was the overall experience? Was it kind of what you anticipated going in?
Honestly, it was very boring.
Yeah, I bet.
Being locked away from the world. But I went into it, not really expecting to, come out of it with meeting good people and making friends. And then I went there kind of in my mind thinking, all right, I'm going to do my own thing and, do my best and see how it goes. But after, the teams were picked and meeting, the coaches that Coach Chandler brought in and then all the teammates after that first practice, we all bonded really fast and kind of everything just clicked. And it ended up being a really cool experience that I was very thankful that I got to go through that experience with the people that I did and the coaches that I did. It was cool.
Did you like the concept of doing veterans and prospects? Because usually it's one or the other. I personally, I never understand why they never did the veteran thing more often, because a lot of us know who you are already. Because I remember, obviously you in the UFC and so many others. I think it's a good idea to have that kind of built in. I already know the fighter going into the house,
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. When I first got told about the opportunity, I was like, oh, well, I'm a UFC veteran, so it's going to be a bunch of other UFC veterans. And I was coming off a fight in October I went into it with a bunch of injuries. I could hardly move my arm and things like that, and fracture my heel and just a bunch of things going on. And I didn't even train, after that fight up until 2.5 weeks leaving for the Ultimate Fighter.
Wow.
So yeah, I thought I was going to have a bunch of hard fights, against a bunch of veterans that are hungry to get back. And don't get me wrong, every one of them are hungry to get back. But it was a cool concept, to fight the prospects, because a lot of those guys are very hungry. And it's a theme we haven't quite seen, in an Ultimate Fighter yet. So I thought it turned out really cool.
Did you know anyone, once you were on the show and you knew who was part of the cast, did you know anyone ahead of time? Anyone you had trained with before or anything like that?
No, outside of Roosevelt Roberts, and I didn't know him personally. I just knew him, because I've seen a few of his fights before. But outside of him, I guess I knew one of the prospects and Nate Jennerman just because I knew him from way back.
Well, you guys are both in LFA too, yeah. Back in the day, yeah.
So I guess I was slightly familiar with two of them. But I didn't know anyone else really outside of that.
Okay. And so you find out the coaches are Chandler and McGregor. At the time, before they selected the teams, whose team did you want to be on? I mean, obviously it doesn't matter now because we know you ended up on Team Chandler, but did you want to be on Connor's team, or were you happy with getting Chandler?
No, I was very happy with getting Chandler.
Especially after the fact now. I mean, kind of looking back, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It wasn't that I was like hating on McGregor or didn't want to be on his team or anything. Me personally, I thought I would have blended better with Chandler. With McGregor, I wasn't quite sure what you're gonna get out of that experience. You know what I mean? Obviously, he's a huge superstar. He has a lot of great things that he's done in the sport, and he's always busy. I wasn't, like I said, I just wasn't quite sure what you would get out of McGregor. And I was pretty certain that you would get some good work with Chandler, and we did, and I was very happy to be on his team.
yeah, how good of a coach is Chandler? You can kind of see it on TV, but obviously you see everything where the cameras aren't showing it. How good of a coach is he?
Yeah, he's an awesome coach. It's funny. He said that was kind of his first coaching experience, and it seemed like he was doing it, forever.
Mhm.
Um, he was a great coach. He got us, things that we needed, anything, we specifically needed. He was always on top of whatever we needed, and he surprised us with like new wrestling shoes, like MMA gloves, like anything that he could do for us and make our experience better on the Ultimate Fighter. He went out of his way to do so. I was very happy, like I said, to be on his team.
And obviously we've kind of seen as the show's unfolded, Connor really hasn't been there a lot of times. Is that accurate? I know sometimes they do some editing, but from your vantage point, I know you weren't on his team, but I'm sure you talked to the teammates on that team McGregor. Was he really absent from the show?
Yeah, he missed some things for sure, which kind of leads into what I was talking about. I wasn't quite sure what you'd get out of him attention wise, just because I knew, I mean, he is a busy man. He has what, like four different companies. He's a
For sure.
superstar. He's probably pulled in so many different directions, and has a lot going on. So, yeah, you could kind of see that a little bit at times for sure.
Let's talk about the Aaron McKenzie fight. That's why we're here. Just first off, like, how was it fighting like without the crowd? I know I'm not sure. I can't remember. If you'd fought during like the COVID times, it might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been kind of similar to that. But how was it just fighting with like nobody there, really?
It's kind of funny. I forget who asked me, but someone asked me, was like, "Oh, are you like nervous for fighting at the Apex and this and that?" I was like, "No, I've fought here like 5 times already." So
Right.
I feel this is like being back at home. It felt great. I almost felt like I had the home field advantage. But yeah, it was cool. It went well.
Yeah, no, it certainly did. Great performance. Anything about Aaron surprised you in the fight that maybe you weren't expecting?
um, he was tough. He was very tough. I've never seen him fight outside of our fight. Uh, and I hit him with some hard things, and I thought a few times the fight was gonna be coming to an end. And he, to his credit, he fought hard. He fought, through those adversities, and came back, hard. He never gave up, and especially after that one knee that I dropped him in the first, I thought it was over, and he came out firing hard the second round, still trying to push for the win, and that surprised me a little bit, that fire that he had, which to his credit.
Again, we're going to be watching the rest of the season to kind of see what happens. Who would you say you really bonded with on the show as far as teammates or maybe even members of the other team?
Everyone in the house was really cool. By the end, we were all hanging out together. There wasn't too much animosity between teams. We really all got along and formed a pretty good bond, I would say. But me and Roosevelt Roberts, became pretty good friends. It really, all the lightweight veterans, we ended up rooming together. So Kurt and Jason and myself and Ro, we all, became really good friends. we would have our own room down in the basement. And then like at nights and stuff, we'd always like kind of hang out together, and it was a cool experience. Like I said, I didn't go into it thinking I was gonna make many friends, and I definitely made some friends. So.
And on that note, any plans, after this to kind of train with some of the guys or go train with Chandler even? Because again, he was your coach.
Yeah. I'm planning on it actually. So, yeah, I would love to get down to Florida and train with Chandler. And, one of my row is moving down there, and I was going to go train with him. And, I would, travel and train with any one of them really, if I get the opportunity. And, you know, I, I love going in places and meeting people. Granted, they're people I know, but like getting different looks and things like that. So I would love to go train wherever I can and meet, have a little reunion training sessions
There
wherever
you
I
go.
can.
Yeah, it all kind of works out.
Yeah.
I know you guys are in different weight classes, but I know Brad Katona really well. He's Canadian. I interviewed Brad for years. It seems like you two would get along because he's just such a nice guy, kind of like yourself.
Yeah. Like I said, everyone in the house, there was really no one that was like, oh, I can't stand this guy. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, it was all a great experience in that aspect, and I was pretty thankful that we all did get along, because I imagine it would have made that lockdown in that house a lot more
Yeah, difficult
rough
if you
than it
guys are at each
was.
other's throats, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a
yeah.
little bit interesting there too. And just, a couple more quick ones. How was it with the cameras? We've done interviews for years, but to have a camera in your face 24/7, how did you handle that?
It's different. It's really weird. There's cameras posted up all over the house, and then there's a camera crew right there. You'll be the camera crew may be inside, on someone else, and you're talking outside, and all of a sudden they show up, and you gotta
Right.
just keep talking and stuff like that. It's a different experience for sure. I'm not a TV guy. That was my first time on TV,
I bet. Yeah.
so it's different. That's for sure.
Before we get out of here, something new that since last time you and I've spoken, you're with new management now. I know not that old, but you're with Iridium. How did
Yeah.
that come together? Because I know you were with another management group before, I believe, when we did our last interview, which is a while ago, by the way. I looked on
Yeah.
Skype here. It's 2021. We got to do more interviews, Austin. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. I after my fight with Vince Pichel, UFC, wasn't necessarily wanting to re-sign me, and I was in a very weird spot, and it wasn't necessarily due to, the lack of my management like helping me. It was, a situation that I was in myself. I lost that fight and finished that contract 2-2, and um, UFC just didn't want to re-sign me, and I kind of was just in limbo a little bit. And I felt like I was trying to get fights, couldn't get anything. I just felt like, I have a family to take care of, a wife and a daughter. Things were getting stressful. I have making money. I mean, I was making money, with my fights, and
Yeah.
that's how I was supporting my family. And then when those fights weren't coming in, things got pretty tight, and I just felt like I had to try something different. In Iridium, I knew Jason House. He's good friends, good relationship standing with the UFC. So I felt like I just had to try something and see if I could get an opportunity. Like I said, it wasn't like anything along the lines of I was unhappy with them. I just felt like I needed to go in a different direction at that point.
Who did you know Jason through? I was curious because I know there's a couple of your teammates that are rep by them. I know Justin Wetzel, I think, is rep by. I'm not sure who else from your
Yeah.
team is rep by them. Was there sort of a connection there, or did you reach out to them? How did that work out?
It's kind of funny how it worked out. So, like I said, I was kind of in limbo and trying, and then I randomly, and I knew, Jason had a lot of fighters in the UFC. I mean, look at the cards; a lot of them
Yeah,
are
Iridium
his
fighters. That's
fighters.
true.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So the numbers speak for themselves. Like on every card that he has a handful of fighters. And I, through when you're in this business, you kind of hear, things, and I knew he was in good standing and whatnot. And so I randomly bumped into him at, I forget what card it was. Curtis, I was in the corner with Curtis when he was fighting, and just randomly started talking to Jason, and Um, and the rest was history. I ended up, signing over not too long after.
Good, and it's worked out for opportunities like this on The Ultimate Fighter. Austin, this was great, man. Really appreciate you
Yeah.
taking the time. If there's anyone you want to thank before we get out of here, any sponsors, any social media you want to mention, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I just want to thank my sponsors, Supreme Cleaners, Raw House Bully, or I'm sorry, Bully House Raw dog food, and Browse by Hannah, and Healthy Bean Organic Coffee. And, my Instagram is AustinHub155. You can follow me there, check out the journey, and that'll be all.